Welcome to Ala Zaidman of Oasis Summer Day Camps, which are located throughout New York and New Jersey. Today, we're going to talk about training staff to work with campers. You know, Ala, so much of a camper's experience is their interaction with counselors and staff. So how do you prepare staff for a successful summer?
Thank you for having me. I think that this is a very, very key point and something that we at Oasis pride ourselves on doing. And with my sort of camp industry contacts, I think every camp director will tell you the same thing. Um, some of our staff, believe it or not, have been campers with us in the past, and they come in knowing who we are. So that's great. What they don't understand is really what it takes to work at a camp. So we do put together a very rigorous staff training when we talk about appropriate methodology for discipline and reward. We talk about appropriate games to play for various ages of children with regard to downtime, or if you show up in an activity and the instructor happens to not be there yet, how do you keep the kids engaged? We talk about many things that have to do with and role plays that have to do with working with your co-counselor, working with your supervisor, of knowing how to resolve conflict amongst campers, and also importantly, how to communicate with parents. So all of those things combine into several days of intense 8-hour day trainings.
And I know you try to teach a balance between discipline and fun.
So that is also very, very key. When I talk about what are appropriate games to play with the kids, our motto is sort of two-pronged. One is everyone safe, and is everyone having fun? And our training has that in mind, because if you're, if you're in a situation where it's just, let's just sit here and just wait for something to happen, or an instructor to show up just so that we're safe, that's not really fun for the kids. And if you're a staff member who has really awesome activities, but they involve things like trust falls from a high chair or something like that, that could be a lot of fun. Or jumps across, very large spaces, for example, that could be a lot of fun. The problem is that it's not very safe. So we really focus on balancing the training around that. And we do a lot of role plays. And what would you do with this situation? And we give examples to counselors that are sort of on opposite ends of that spectrum, and ask them to figure out how to combine them into that balance of and happy medium, right? Of really knowing what is safe and what is fun, and being able to gear that for really all the ages that we have at camp.
And how do you prepare the staff for health and safety?
So we do have a health director that is on board with us. And what they do is they give a very short training, because you can do first aid and CPR, but not everyone will do first aid and CPR. Really, our leadership and key head counselors will be first aid CPR trained. So there's a good probably dozen to 15 people who are first aid CPR trained. The rest of the staff who are not first aid and CPR trained undergo a training with our health director that talks about what to do if there's a scrape and fall, how to clean it up, put a Band-Aid on it, how do you put on gloves so to keep everybody safe. How do you calm a child down when they're, very upset about being hurt? What happens if someone falls and hits their head and shouldn't be moved? What happens if they complain of an arm ache and they also shouldn't be moved too much? How do you go get someone really, really quickly and communicate to your camp director that this child needs medical attention very soon? And also, it is a little bit broader than that. With how do you make sure that the kids are hydrated? How do you make sure to recognize dehydration and sun fatigue before it becomes a real medical emergency? So that's also all part of the training. And that's, when I say short, it's a few hours out of our 8-hour day. So we want to make sure that once the children arrive at camp, they're really are, the staff is confident to attack those kind of things.
And what are a few questions parents should ask about staff training when they're considering a camp?
I definitely think that the discipline portion is very important. At Oasis, we have a very, very different approach. We talk about redirecting activity, not really activity, but really child behavior into what we want them to do. So if we are going to line up to transition from activity to activity, what we say is, okay, line up, I'll count you down, or we have little songs that we do for kids to line up. And if, there's a child that isn't lined up, it doesn't really help to continue to say to them, I've told you so many times, why aren't you lined up? What it does help to say is, come be my line leader, come help me, so that that child is engaged with you. Similarly, during an activity, what is the discipline for, a child that maybe interrupts games? And so, or doesn't want to participate, how do you get them involved? And so parents need to understand that we really are looking for the staff to get in there themselves and also make sure that the children are being sort of great helpers or great referees or somehow involved in that activity. So those are the type of questions you want to make sure that they ask. You don't want the camps to answer you and say, well, we'll have a timeout or something of that nature. That's really not what makes a child behave properly again, and it makes them distrust you.
Right. Well, tell us a little bit about your camp before we go.
So Oasis runs several locations throughout New York and New Jersey. We run a camp in Westchester at Mercy, one at LIU, Post in Long Island, two in Manhattan, one in Central Park and downtown, one in Bayside at Fort Totten Park, and another in Madison, New Jersey at Drew University. We have programs for ages 3 to 15. And on this topic specifically, we actually were recognized by New York State Youth training programs that really recognize Oasis's training and giving youth skills to take with them to future jobs. And that's something we were recognized about 5 years ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, Alla, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.